I personally have a web development background. And if you know anything about web development, you know that the tools and the frameworks change constantly. And when I got into machine learning and Python, I really struggled in the beginning to get a nice flow into my projects. However, I want to create this small video where I basically want to show my current developer setup for machine learning and Python projects in general, so that people might understand more of how modern Python apps are created, but also as a sort of snapshot for myself to see how my setup would change and improve, hopefully, in the coming years. First of all, the IDE I'm using from my day-to-day is currently Cursor. I am actually willing and thinking about changing that, since I am starting to get a lot more critical of AI assisted coding, just because it's not AI assisted coding anymore. It's basically human assisted coding, just with an AI doing most of the stuff. I have looked into things like Codex and Claude Code, and even looked into the agents for Cursor. But personally, I just really am thinking of going bare bones back to Neo Vim. Since before all of this, I used to dabble a bit in Neo Vim, and I still have Vim motions in my setups. Personally, I'm just thinking of really just going back, because I'm feeling like my projects, when I'm using too much AI coding into this, that first of all, they seem to lose the flair of just being my projects, you know? Like, this might sound a bit cringe, but oftentimes us as developers, we are some sort of artist or something like that. And it would be kind of the equivalent often to just like have an artist generate images or videos with AI. Instead, I personally am thinking of having AI more as a helper, really, to put the co-pilot back into co-pilot, you know, and having you still be the main pilot of your project. So things that I really like of AI coders are things like semantic search through your files, so you can easily find parts of code. Another thing is also web search, helping me search through things. Nobody likes to look through docs, really, you know. And then another thing is actually also diagnosis, you know, trying to find problems and see how to diagnose them. But I don't want it to do most of my work anymore. I have stepped down a lot with me using Cursor itself. But yeah, I'm still thinking of going back to just NeoVim, because I was thinking of just going back to VS Code, but VS Code forces you, it feels like, still to use Copilot and all these tools, which I really don't want. But yeah, let's get into the actual setup. I currently am using UV for my package manager. So I would do UV init, and it's just super fast. It's currently the fastest thing to set up your projects, and I just really like it. The one thing that I really dislike, however, is if I install a package, for instance, if I do UV add PyTorch, which is my preferred framework for machine learning right now, and that's embarrassing. It's called Torch. Uh, yeah, so as you can see, it's installing it super quick actually in comparison to pip or even poetry. I used to use poetry before this. I really still like poetry. But yeah, right now I'm using UV just because how fast it is. But this is my first critique. The vent right here. It's installing all of it right here. And I understand that it's needed for the projects, but this can take up so much of your disk space if you're not careful. If you have like 100 Python projects, all of them with their own vent, it takes up so much space, like gigabytes of space, just, you know, so this is something that you need to take care of. But if you do UV vent, of course, I mean, I already have it on. But yeah, I am now in my Venv right here, and I have my virtual environment activated. And like I hinted to before, I am currently using PyTorch as my main machine learning library. I like the flexibility to it. Uh, and yeah, for my data frames, I have been using pandas most of the time. But recently, I have been also looking more and practicing more a bit with polars. And honestly, I'm very, very excited of Polars. I tried it out on like a big data set, which is like a couple of gigabytes in size. And it did so many of these huge operations in milliseconds. It was so impressive to me. And I like how easily you can connect it to SQL too. Speaking of SQL, currently I am using Postgres as my databases, and specifically I am using Superbase as my database provider. This is only just because of the simplicity. I don't want to deal with all of the problems right now with setting up databases, but I am looking into other options. I've looked into, for instance, Railway, which I am liking a lot. On Railway, you can not only host your databases, but also your entire Python project. One thing that I do like to do, however, which is not that common, is I use make. So I have here a make file. And with make files, it's actually really cool. Let's say here my main.py right here. Okay, it just has print hello world. And in my make file, I can actually, create here some commands which I can just run, very similar to npm package.json if you also come from the web world. So if I do here, for instance, phony start like this, and then I say here what it is, and I want to do uv run main.py, and now all I have to do is just right here make start, and then it runs this command that I have here. And the cool thing is it could be a multi-step setup, so you can do uv venv, you can do uv install and all of that, and then run it, for instance. Okay, I mean, let's remove the venv just like this, and then okay, uv sync, sorry, that's the command, uv start, sorry, make start, and then it first, as you can see, it does the uv sync and then uv run main.py. And of course, this is just a very simple example, but you can really go all in on this and just make beautiful setups for your projects with make files. My machine learning models itself, I actually currently host on Hugging Face. I don't think that would change anytime soon, but yeah. And then lastly, I also use weights and biases for looking at my epochs and going through and seeing if everything is still okay. For training the models, I actually don't use Colab. I like more to use Vast.ai. I think it's a nicer service. I made another video on how to actually set up Vast.ai. So lastly, I just want to show you how this would look in person. And here, for instance, we have here one of my projects, which turned into a thesis. And yeah, here the central part, as we see here, is the make file. And in the make file here, I first put like all of the arguments. For instance, these are like variables that I can then use later. And here I can declare all of my commands that I want to do. And then here I have the commands and what they do. So for instance, if I do make test, it runs here, this right here. Then if I do make prepare, it runs uv sync, and then also make check data set. And here it would be check data set right here, and so on. And then here, the most important thing, as you can see, is I have here make train baseline, and this would actually then train my model. So this is the entry point of my model itself. And then I also have here evaluate baseline, and then also train a different model. And yeah, I have this all here in source, and here I would have my training scripts. Here I do have my models. So I have the baseline right here, which is actually a Lightning module, not a PyTorch module. So for this case, I did like to use Lightning more than just basic PyTorch. And then here I have the actual part of my experiment. And yeah, I run all of this on a Vast.ai A100 GPU. And yeah, one thing that I do sometimes do often is I have here notebooks, like a folder with notebooks. And here I have my Jupyter's notebooks that I would just have for testing, but the main project would still be Python based and not Jupyter's notebook based. And yeah, and then here I also have my images. I mean, this was just for testing. I just wanted to see the images that it was generating and all of that. So I really hope this video was insightful to show you how at least I would do modern Python development. And I'm very much looking forward to your feedback on my current setup, because I would love to improve this too. And I would love to hear about your setup too, inshallah.